try and get it in is this form right there. Okay, that is the standard go-to form. Let me make sure that they use the H and the K. Some books do, some books don't. Yeah. Okay, H in K is your vertex. Axis of symmetry will just be your H. Okay, it would be the X of the vertex. All right, so that's where we're going to start. Let's say I have this, and the A tells me which direction. If the A is positive, it opens up. If the A is negative, it opens down. Okay? We've already talked about that. So let's look at this particular equation. All right, that's up in that form. So how do I go from that form that it's in to the form that's going to give me the vertex? Well, I'm going to have to complete the square on this. Okay? If you're still struggling with completing the square, this is not going to be fun for you. But the problem is I have to do everything on one side of the equation. When I completed the square before, I worked on both sides. This time, I can't work on this side because I have the f of x. I don't really have a value. I just have the f of x. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of separate this. And I'm going to throw my negative 60 out there. Okay? Then, remember, to complete the square, I can't have a number besides 1 in front of my x squared. So I'm going to have to factor out that negative 1. So now I have x squared minus 24x plus blank minus 60. And now this time, I'm going to have to put the blanks on the same side. So I'm going to complete this square. How am I going to do it?
Half of 24 and square it.
Half of 24 and square it. So I'm going to have 144 here, correct? But I haven't really added a positive 144. I've added a negative 144 because I've got a negative 1 in front of it. So if I'm working on one side of the equation, how do I counteract that negative 144 that I've added?
Add the opposite.
Add the opposite. I'm going to add a positive 144 right there. Do we understand? This negative out here means that I've actually added a negative 144. The opposite of adding a negative 144 is to add a positive 144. Okay? Negative 144, positive 144 equals what? 0. Okay, so therefore I'm allowed to do it. So then I turn around and I factor this. And remember the square root of that sign, square root of that, squared. And then if I take 144 and add a negative 60 to it, I'm going to have a positive 84. That right there is in my right form. Okay? So what's the vertex of this parabola? Right? Okay? See that minus h? That means it's going to be the opposite of whatever's inside this parenthesis. Okay? So it's going to be a positive 12, and then the 84 stands as it is. So it's 1284. Is this going to open up, or is this going to open down?
Yeah.
It's going to open down. Okay, so now I want you to think about the fact that somewhere up there is 1284. It's going to turn down, right? In order to graph it, it's going to cross the x-axis, is it not? How would I find out where it crosses the x-axis? I can go right back up here and solve this. okay, and that's going to give me 3 points, right? If it didn't cross the x-axis, maybe what I would do is I would plug in 13 and I would plug in 11 into the equation and find a point on either side of the vertex. But I do know if it's going to turn down, it's going to eventually have to cross it. So therefore, I can come back to this original form and I can factor it. I can graph it on my calculator. I can complete the square on it by putting a 0 on the other side and working it out. I can use the quadratic formula on it. Okay, I can do all those things to solve it. I'm thinking that the quadratic formula might be the easiest thing to do on it. Okay, rather than sit there and try and factor it. So I'm going to erase this part of it. And I've got a negative 24 plus or minus the square root of, and I don't know what 24 squared is, 576 minus 4 times, this times a is negative 1 and c is negative 60 over 2 times negative 1. All right, that's going to give me a negative right there. So I'm going to end up with a negative 240, so I have 576 minus 240. So I've got negative 24 plus or minus the square root of 336 over negative 2. Now, on this particular thing, because I'm trying to solve it, I'm trying to see where it crosses the x-axis, go ahead and work this thing all the way through. Get a decimal value for it. So I have negative 24 plus the square root of 336 divided by negative 2, and I'm going to get a 2.83 as one of my answers. And then I'm going to do negative 24 minus the square root of 336 divided by negative 2, and I'm going to get a 21.17. Okay, so basically here, and if I extend it about over there. So then I can graph. Okay? Does that make sense? The reason why I didn't leave it in square root form is because I can't turn around and translate that to actually graphing it. Okay, so I wanted an actual value for it. Does that make sense? All right, let's do another one. Sometimes they leave it in the right form for you, and you can just go from what they've given you. Okay, let's say they give you this. Alright, it's in the right form. You don't have to do anything to put it in the right form. What's the vertex? How about negative 6, 3? Negative 6, negative 3. Okay, this is your x, this is your y. It's always the opposite of what's inside the parentheses. Okay, so if that's a plus 6, this is going to be a negative 6. What's on the outside stands the way it is. Okay, so is it going to open up or open down? It's going to open what? I didn't hear you.
Up.
It's going to open up. That's positive. Smile, positive person smiles, a smile goes up. Negative person frowns, it goes down, right? So it's going to open up. So if I wanted to graph this thing, I have that as the vertex, don't I? Now if it opens up, is it going to cross the x-axis? Yeah. Okay, so therefore I could actually solve this for my solutions and figure out where it crosses it. Now, in order to do that, I'm going to have to turn around and convert it back to that. So I do FOIL on this. So I have x squared plus 12x plus 36 minus 3. So I have x squared plus 12x plus 33, right? Now, I can graph it, and I can actually put it in this form and graph it if I want, and find the zeros, okay? That might be the easiest way to do it, then I don't have to change forms. But if I go ahead and put in that form, then I can do the quadratic formula on it. Okay, quadratic formula, negative 12 plus or minus the square root of 144 minus 4 times 1 times 33 over 2 times 1. So negative 12 plus or minus, let's see here, what's 33 times 4? Okay, so 132, so I have 12, right? And over 2. So I'd have to get a value there, so I have negative 12 plus the square root of 12 divided by 2, so I have a negative 4.26, 1, 2, 3, 4, so approximately right there. And then I have a negative 12 plus the square root of 12 divided by 2. And I have, oh wait a minute, I must have done that. Okay, negative 12 minus the square root of 12 divided by 2 is a negative 7.7. Okay, so 4, 5, 6, 7, so approximately right there. And there will be my graph. Okay, what I want you to do is I want you to put that in under y equals on your calculator. And then do the 0, the second calculate 0, to see if you don't get, well, I didn't write down the second one. See if you don't get those two answers. You understand what I mean? So the same thing you got, okay. See, I guess the hard thing is there's so many different ways to do this. Okay, you've got to understand it to then choose your way. So just understand that this and this are the same thing. If I have it in that form, I can use the quadratic formula on it. If I have it in this form, I could graph it and find my zeros on the graphing calculator. Okay, I can also find the vertex from that form. Okay. Did you get it, girls? Michelle? No.
My windows changed like 8 point something.
Okay, let's see. Get it? Do you understand how to find the zeros on it? Okay. All right, we're going to do one more, and then I'll give you your homework. Okay, so we're going to do one where we have to put it in this form in order to find the vertex. Okay. Now, would you have to do that? No, not necessarily. You could do the negative b over 2a and then plug it back in to find the vertex. Look at this. Okay, so they give you that and they say, okay, name the vertex, the axis of symmetry, and the direction of the opening of the graph. That's all they ask. Okay, they don't ask you to graph it. So pay attention to what it's asking you. So if I can put this in the right form, I can get all that stuff just from the form. So I'm going to leave the first two right here at the front. Then I'm going to throw this back here. I'm going to factor out the negative 5. So that's going to give me an x squared plus negative 18, I think. x, divide 80 by negative 5 and tell me if it's negative 18. 16. Okay, all right. All right, what's going to go in that blank?
64.
64. But I haven't technically added 64. What have I really added?
Negative 64.
No, I've added negative 5 times 64. So negative 5 times 64 is going to give me a negative 320. So I've added a negative 320 here. So what do I need to add down there?
320.
Positive 320 to counter it. Okay, so I've got negative 5. This is going to be x minus 8 squared plus 1. What's my vertex?
8 and 1.
What is it?
8 and 1.
8, 1. What's my axis of symmetry?
8.
Okay, x equals 8. What's the direction of the opening?
Down.
Down. You're done. Okay, didn't ask you to graph it, didn't ask you to do anything about it. So if it never asks you to graph it, this is probably the easiest way to do it. Because it puts it in the form where you can just look at the form and you can pull all the answers out of it. Okay? You're looking a little confused. Are you confused on it or you got it? Or time will tell.
Just like a lot.
It is a lot. It absolutely is a lot, and that's why, you know, to try and understand how it all fits together. Understanding is the key to it. Not step 1, step 2, step 3. Okay? What they're asking you to do determines what form you would want it in. Okay? All right, let me go ahead and give you your homework. Now, we did not finish all of that section. Okay, so you do have, I've got one more thing I need to show you. Totally skipped over it. Let's say they give you the solutions. Well, no, I did show you that. Okay, page 363. I want you to do 18 through 38 even. And then on this other page, I'm just going to give you just a few to do to expose you to it, and then we'll come back tomorrow and finish it up, okay? But I want you to just do a couple. All right, do that as your homework. You got about 15 minutes.